EastEnders is a mammoth of British entertainment, a weekly production that creates 4 episodes a week and roughly 210 episodes a year. With it being over 40 years old in 2025, there are over 7,000 episodes with no 2 broadcasts ever being the same. Deriving from the fictional borough of the East End of London, with its storylines being headlined by residents that populate the square. With the show establishing many culturally relevant superstars like Peggy Mitchell, Pat Butcher, Phil Mitchell, Ian Beale, Kat Slater, Den Watts, etc., you would expect the fascination with EastEnders would last. Sadly, the longevity, despite the tenure of the show, never usually lasts within one singular fan. Why is that? Due to the long-running nature of the show, it is completely different to a regular TV program. It is difficult to have a defined long-term vision. Rather than plotting out an 8-episode arc, you're masterminding this slow burn where these characters are thrust upon our screens for hundreds of episodes a year. With the progression sometimes amounting to a snail's pace, storylines can take anywhere from up to 1 day to 2 or even 3 years. It is one of the hardest balancing acts that very few of the EastEnders bosses have managed to flourish within. Typically, most executive producers can have anywhere between 1 year to 3 years at the helm, with every head honcho often having a differing vision from the producer that came before. One of the easiest examples is the first major transition from the show's original creators, Julia Smith and Tony Holland. They directed the show from its inception to 1989, with them falling out with the BBC over its interference in Den Watts' famous 1989 exit, where Julia and Tony became incensed that his death was left ambiguous in the edit. Countless stars also departed the show, worried that the next producers were going to change the direction heading into the 90s. Undoubtedly, the direction did change, with the introduction of 2 brooding leading men in the form of Phil and Grant Mitchell. This ushered in more of a grittier crime motif that the 90s is known for. One can imagine if you were heavily invested in Tony and Julia's direction, this swap to more of a crime focus may feel blinding. This might drive you away from the show, as it feels like a reflection you no longer recognise. As for being a viewer, committing to a soap can be an extraordinarily large and emotional time sink. If you start watching a soap, you're committing approximately 2 hours a week, 52 weeks of the year. There is no off-season. When it is fantastic, it can be the nectar of the gods. But when it's poor, it becomes an obligation many people opt out of. If EastEnders falls out of your crosshair, it can be exceptionally hard to keep up. One moment, your favourite relationship has gotten together, but 3 months pass by and the relationship is split up, and your favourite duo may never be seen on your TV screen ever again, with it displaying many different faces since its inception. It started off as a downtrodden Thatcher's London, with a predominantly working-class family focus. The 90s provided a grittier approach to storytelling, with the introductions of Grant and Phil Mitchell, who were larger-than-life leading men, which embraced a more crime-centric vision. In the 2000s, crime reigned supreme, with the introduction of gangsters like Jack Dalton, Andy Hunter, Johnny Allen, all poised as the foil to Grantless Phil Mitchell, who assumed the personalities of both brothers. Plunging into the 2010s, where the crime rate lessened, but once again the Mitchells drove it to a height with the flourishing Mitchell sisters and the fever pitch surrounding the Lucy Beale whodunit, skyrocketing EastEnders to the stratosphere just as quickly as the killer reveal sent it plummeting. 2020s were the first time in history where EastEnders had to stop airing due to the world shutting down. The show was in a slump with an overarching Grey Atkins on the loose and a rotten direction once again, with EastEnders caked in a crime-ridden sludge. With a 40th anniversary set to hit in 2025, EastEnders was steered away from disaster and retook its position on the throne as best soap. The family-based drama of the 80s re-established its crown and planted it firmly on the hot seat. EastEnders has shown many different faces over the years, all of which to say is that no one person's soap experience is the same. In most instances, the era you started watching often defines what you will glorify as peak soap opera. My personal favourite era of EastEnders is the 2023 to 2025 40th anniversary, with Chris Crenshaw producing it. It was a truly must-see EastEnders, with the shocking return of Cindy Beale from the dead, the flash forward suggesting someone is going to die in the Vic at Christmas, set up in February and culminating at Christmas. Ironically, and this is the exception not the rule, I started watching in 2018, after initially watching it from roughly 2008 to 2011 when I was 8 and didn't know what was going on. After starting a retail job in 2018, I found myself gravitating towards EastEnders, wanting some pure escapism, and even though I will critique it heavily now, at the time it was a doorway to the beautiful, enthralling world of soap. At this point, I'm exceptionally embarrassed that this was my window to EastEnders after not watching it for years, but it opened up my preconceived notions and embarrassment of watching a show many people would say is not worth the time. I started like most people do, at a surface level of information about it. I knew some characters and sought out storylines on YouTube, at first familiar ones and later stories I had never heard of. It can be far too Moorish, with many viewers just like me going from watching nothing to watching as much as I could humanly find. Since then, I added Coronation Street and Hollyoaks to my roster and will watch approximately 5 hours of soap a week. See, once it clicks, it opens up a world of possibilities and comfort. You can spend years with a character. At this point, you might be wondering, what does any of this relate to getting into EastEnders? And to that I say, it's more complicated than it seems. When you discuss soaps with non-watchers, you often get a myriad of reactions. I haven't watched it in 20 years, I wouldn't know any of the characters anymore, people who hate it despite never watching a hint of it, just from reputation alone. Some will say they already have enough drama in their lives. My favourite part of these conversations is the crowd who suggests it feels wrong to start in the middle of nowhere, so they would prefer to watch it from the start. Good luck with the 7,000 episodes. In an idealised world, it would be cool if that felt viable, but 7,000 episodes is a lot. Let's suggest you pull up the iPlayer and tuck into this week's EastEnders. Coincidentally, the current week could be fantastic, it could be middling, or it is a memory of a week you'll never see the follow-up to. As per the nature of the beast, not every week is going to be high-octane drama. There is a reason why Car Crash TV has no longevity. So, to avoid disappointment or mitigate one random week in October putting you off the scent for years, you set your sights on the prize pick of the British soap opera calendar, Christmas. The month where rivalries heat up, secrets are revealed, and it all culminates in the one day where families are forced to confront the person sitting right in front of them. It is explosive, unforgettable, and in the unenviable position forever to be remembered in the annals of history. It's perfect for a returning or new viewer, as everything is heightened and the ticking time bomb is mere moments from an explosion. The greatest tragedy of watching soaps at Christmas is that January is often the worst month of the year. It would be irresponsible to keep up the frantic nature of Christmas and thrust it upon January, as at the end of the day, reaching the summit is only as exciting as the journey that got you there. In EastEnders' case, January acts as a buffer between the event of the year and the build-up to its perennially celebrated anniversary, as every milestone beyond 5 becomes a glowing endorsement of a legacy that many programs will never achieve. Without doubt, January has and always is the worst month of the year. The slump after Christmas, the brave change on the path to becoming the new you, where decisions you would happily make at any other time of the year now gets antagonized by this drive to be better. EastEnders is no different. It intentionally slows down in order to recover from the heights of the great event that came before. At this stage, the prospect is too tantalizing. You don't want to wait till Christmas, you're acting in the here and now. If you manage to activate this interest, you can be mining gold for years, with a massive library readily available in order to develop this fledgling interest. Multiple years before, you would have to pull through the scraps in order to watch the EastEnders back catalogue, but in the last couple of years, BBC has been making a great effort in order to archive older episodes. You can watch every Christmas from its inception and watch every single episode on the iPlayer from 2008 onwards. The ones that aren't on the iPlayer are often getting played on what used to be called UK TV Gold, but now it's just called U. The website is literally called www.u.co.uk. You have got to be kidding me. People will be clawing your eyes out a decade ago to have this much accessibility. If this is an extreme example, no one is expecting you to watch all the episodes from the start, but you can watch iconic episodes as well to get the gist. Despite being a soap fan since 2018, the only years I watched in full are every year since. An inspired way to learn is to look up full storylines on YouTube. I personally found myself watching Ben Mitchell's entire history on the show. And yes, I became a fan of the show through being a fan of Ben Mitchell. In most instances, if you're really invested in a character, you get introduced to other characters within the show that you become a fan of, as you do become a fan of the show. Now, I feel you withdrawing from me through saying that. Yes, I must confess, I was a Ballum stan, and even remember posting a thirsty Reddit post over Ben Mitchell in that burgundy suit for Callum and Whitney's wedding. But I've confessed my sins and have spent many more years lamenting the direction that the character took. Don't judge me too harshly, I have atoned for my sins. I was also a Sonia and Martin stan, and I refuse to let stalker Sarah Cairns be forgotten. After all this, you surmise you cannot settle into the episodes. And even if you did, you simply don't have the time. That's fine too. One of my family members often drew the short straw. With a history of watching EastEnders, he was subjected to my regular rants and theories surrounding the show I love. He would often ask me, is it a good time to watch EastEnders? And at different points in time, I would often say no. He would be a regular around the TV at Christmas, but when the January blues hit, EastEnders would be the last thing on his screen. This was until Christmas 2023, where he would watch Christmas and be hooked, as 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months would pass by and the EastEnders would keep getting turned on. To this day, he is still an EastEnders fan, but the timing is important. There are definitely good and bad times to get invested. 2018, for example, a trial by combat with only the most tested to survive, but 2023, driven by the meteoric rise of Chris Crenshaw, is one of the better reflections of what EastEnders is capable of. It's perfectly reasonable to not be invested. Soap fandom is not for everyone. At best, it's a beautiful reflection of an ever-evolving depiction of a fictional reality, with residents from differing backgrounds who all combine to establish heartfelt stories that will resonate among the audience. At worst, you could argue it is a snail-paced, shoddily written form of media that instead of angling for perfection, it accepts convenience. It's a heavy investment for anyone, and a soap is only a few bad years away from despair. Something of a dying breed with its ambitious nature struggling to live up to the glory days. Pushing through the noise, however, you are finally ready to settle down and watch this week's EastEnders. Whether it is realistic or not is a non-issue, and mentally you're prepared to embrace the insanity. You put EastEnders on the TV, and it hits. It all hits. You may be a little confused and have no idea who character A or character B is, but that doesn't matter, because it clicked. You acclimatise to the fast-paced nature and indulge further, watching last week's episodes, then last month's episodes, with your favourites guiding you through and the villains filling you with disgust. At this stage, any extra EastEnders you watch will contribute to the ever-expanding history you've built up, adding to the moments you've come to love. It's a tremendous position to find yourself in, as you have captured the lightning in a bottle. This show can be the comfort in your coldest days and the soundtrack to your depressive slumps, or the final piece of the puzzle. Maybe you even chime into the subreddit, the shy voice amongst all the noise saying, maybe this new character isn't the worst to exist in all of human history. There is no right or wrong answer to get into EastEnders, or any soap for that matter. We all come from different eras, different backgrounds, and have alternate favourite storylines. With conflicting opinions apparent in every discussion, it is hard to unite the soap fandom. The only thing we can collectively agree on is once you're invested in the soap, it becomes one of the most captivating shows in television. People will lambast it for being unrealistic or poorly acted, but in a soap you can grow old with the character and live their journey. Your investment is earned and rewarded. There will be people who have watched EastEnders from the beginning and seen the progression of Sharon Watts from spoiled adoptive daughter in Den and Angie to the undisputed Queen of Walford. And there we are. That is hopefully one of many to come of some small little opinion pieces or topics that probably deserve a little bit more time than the usual format. Obviously, if you enjoyed it, I released it as a piece of writing for free on my Substack, which is brand new. And it was a very weird feeling to actually put out a piece of writing as an actual bit of content. It was so bizarre. But if you want to see what other stuff I do plan on releasing a lot of the other scripts on the Substack. So if you do want to do that, there should probably be a link in the description of this video. But all in all, tell me what you think. How was your battle into getting to EastEnders? And do you have a better bit of advice than I do? Because it started as what should have been a tremendously interesting look at saying, here's how you start, and then ended up going, I don't actually know how. But I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to keep watching the rest of it, and hopefully we see a couple more video essays coming out on the channel.